My name is Cletus Musa from Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency. This next slide, please. All right. I will not bother you much with what we do in NISA, but basically our mission is to provide nation water resources, including its location in terms of space, extent, availability, quality, and the possibility of utilization and control through the provision of reliable and high-quality hydrological and hydrogeological data in a continuous basis. Our vision here is to create a dynamic and advanced hydrological services with capability of facilitating and supporting the harnessing, control, preserving, development and management of the Nigerian valuable water resources in a sustainable manner. Next slide, please. Yes. This is just our mandate. We provide services required for assessment of the nation water resources, both surface and groundwaters, in terms of quality, quantity, distribution, availability, in space, and time for efficient and sustainable management of the nation's water resources. Next slide, please. Now, in Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, we collect two forms of data. We collect surface water data and then we collect groundwater data. In the surface water data, we collect data for stage, that is water level, using some parameters, discharge, sediment yield transport studies, which is more bathymetric, surface water quality, that is for surface water. Then for groundwater, we do groundwater level fluctuation, aquifer characteristics, geophysical parameters, groundwater quality. These are data that we collect for groundwater as well. Next slide, please. Yes. Nigerian is divided into 8 hydrological areas with hydrological area 1, 2, 3. It is divided based on the basins. It has 2 major rivers that cut across Nigeria, the River Niger and the River Benue. Now, the drainage systems in each of the hydrological area, we have offices across the nation. Like in hydrological area 1, we have offices in Sokoto, 2 in Kaduna, hydrological area 3 in Yola, 4 in Makurdi, 5 in Port Harcourt, 6 in Ibadan, 7 in Enugu, 8 in Maiduguri. So the country is very into a hydrological area with all of our offices distributed across the country. Next slide, please. Yes. What we do basically here is that this, you can see the map very well. Those points you are seeing are our stations, both telemetric and manual staff gauges. By WMO standard, we are supposed to have 482 telemetric stations, both telemetric and manual staff gauges. But unfortunately, we have 279 as at present. What really happened is that when we go to install most of these staff gauges, people come to vandalize those staff gauges. So we have challenges seriously. Community have been taken along to tell them the significance of these staff gauges, but because of economic situation, we will go there and remove most of these staff gauges. And that is why we have shortfall in our stations, where presently we have 279 stations across the country, but the WMO standard is 482. Thank you. Next slide, please. Yes, if you can see, the one in the box is the telemetric station. We call it DCP, Data Collection Platform. Then if you see the young man by the riverside with that one, that is the staff gauge. These are the ones we use to collect stage data. Like I actually said, in surface water, we collect stage data. This is what we do to collect stage data from the telemetric and then the manual staff gauges. The DCP is there, we call it Data Collection Platform. These are the instruments that are used in collection of the stage data. Next slide, please. Yes, the people in the boat there are those ones you can see where we used to collect discharge data. That boat you are seeing in yellow is called the ADCP, Acoustic Doppler Current Profiler. It is used for discharge measurements to collect data for discharge. We transverse the rivers across the country and then we collect our discharge data. These are some of our staff collecting data of doing maintenance repair by the left hand, by your left hand on the automatic weather stations, and then the monitoring borehole as well on your right. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, in 2024, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency have made its forecast in March. What we usually do is that we do our forecast before the onset of the rainy season. Now, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency uses three models. We call the HMS model, the Soil and Water Assessment Tool model, and then the HDV models. The three models are being used for analysis, input, calibration, and validation of forecast for the annual flood outlook, and it's being disaggregated into three. Now, within the month of April to June, which is April, May, and June, then scenario 2 within the month of July to September, and then scenario 3 is within the month of October and November. Next slide, please. Now, this is the 2024 annual flood outlook for Nigeria that was predicted by Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. So you can see this is our website. You can actually go there to find out for yourself. I will analyze it in the next slide. Please, next slide. Now, summary of the 2024 annual flood outlook. Now, we predicted that 148 local governments of the 31 states, including the FCT. Nigeria has 36 states, including the FCT, and it has 774 local government areas. So within the whole of this, we predicted that 148 local government in the 36 states of the Federation, including the FCT, will fall under high flood risk area, while 249 local governments in the 36 states, including the FCT, falls under moderate flood risk area. And then under the low risk flood area, we have 277 local government areas. Now, the seasonal prediction shows that within the month of March and April, I have discovered within the month of March and April, August and September, October and November, for the high flood risk area, we said 72. Can you hear me? 72. We said. Can I go ahead, please? Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
All right. We said 72 local government area in the month of April, May, and June, while 135 local government area in the month of July to August, and then September, and then within the month of October and November, we say 44 local government area. All of these fall within the high probability risk area. If you watch the map, you see these are the ones we are seeing in red colors. Then in the moderate flood risk area, we say 633 local government area in the month of April to June, while 221 local government falls within the month of July and August and September. And then 100 local government fall within the month of October and November. All of these are within the flood scenario that I've just discussed. But for the high flood risk area, these are the state of Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Bauchi, and these are the states. I will not bother you with all of that. We still experience some coastal flooding. Within the coastal flooding, these are states that fall within the coastal area of Akwa Ibom, Delta, Edo, Lagos, Ogun, Rivers. All of these fall and we experience some form of coastal flooding. Then for the flash flood and urban flooding, of course, we all know that these are pockets of flood. For flash flood, this occur as a result of high intensity and short duration. Urban flood always occur as a result of blockage of drainages, haphazard development, lack of drainages, all of these. So some local government and state that are going to experience this kind of flood include Lagos, Kaduna, Suleja, Gombe, Yola, Makurdi, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Yanagua, and some other states across the country. Next slide, please. Yes. Like I earlier said, the two major rivers of River Niger and River Benue, their confluence is in Lokoja. And within that Lokoja, we have our early warning system at Lokoja. The early warning system is that as soon as the water level rises up to a particular level that enters probably the warning severity level, it rings a bell with a sound and gives a sound and warning. Gives a sound indicating that the water level is rising, that people living within the banks of the rivers of Niger and Benue should please leave this area because there is going to be likely flooding that is going to occur. This is what we are saying by the right hand side of the map. Next slide, please. Yeah, this one is telling you about the early warning system and dissemination. For the early warning system, we have the risk knowledge goes by with the monitoring, warning, and then response of the people and how people communicate and disseminate information about the flooding itself. Then we have the gaps that are being talked about, the observation and monitoring, data analysis, prediction, assessment, and all of that. All of this contribute to the early warning dissemination. Please, next slide. Yes. After the prediction of Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency in its forecast, now the people who are important in this early warning people in issuance of the early warning system include the NIMET, Nigeria Meteorological Services Agency, the print and media organization, the Nigerian Defense Academy, the state governors, the local governments, and all of that. The DSS contributes their own quota in issuance of the early warning system. So we have a stakeholders meeting with them, and then we decide to give them some of this prediction to take to the grass level. Then the mass monitoring and mass prevention early warning information for township, villages, and groups, as well as the disaster condition, are reported to the central station by the observer. The central station will issue them to township and then the villages and groups by level. In case of any emergency, the observer can directly notify relevant personnel or emergency agencies. So these are basically what we do in terms of issuance of flood early warning information. Next slide, please. This one is just showing you some comparative analysis of what happened in 2012 and 2021. The difference is there. In 2021, it shows that the water level is within 12.84 in Lokoja, then with a discharge of 31,692 cubic meter per second. While in 2021, we're telling you that we have about 8.82 meters water level with a discharge of about 14,032 cubic meter per second in Lokoja. While in Makurdi, it's telling you that you have about 12.57 meters of the discharge water level with a corresponding discharge of about 15,840 cubic meter per second. In 2021, it shows you that the maximum water level is 9.9 meter with a corresponding discharge of about 9,047 cubic meter per second. All of this is just telling you what happened in Lokoja and what happened in Benue. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's the same thing too. We're just looking at the comparative hydrograph river of the same Lokoja that we have just talked about. By my right, we have the comparative daily flood water level of the river Niger and Benue. Now, there are two. Within it, because the hydrological area, the hydrological calendar of Nigerians starts around, I think, April or so, April, May, and that's why you see 2023, 2024, 2022, 2023, 2012, and 2013. We just give the various water level within Lokoja and Makurdi. Thank you. Next slide, please. Yes, issuance of the early warning information. The flood early warning issuance mode can be by means of voice, mobile, jingles, radios, fax, internet, TV. Organization at all levels and personnel shall take appropriate measure according to the received early warning information with reference to the plan. When there is no communication network or the communication network is interrupted, according to the dangerous level of the flood and in accordance with the predetermined alarm signal, the warning shall be sent to the potential threatened area by means of releasing signal, flare, alarms, and radio broadcasting. Loudspeakers will go about after the flood prediction to sensitize the people, and we use all of this as our early warning information tools. Next slide, please. Yes, we in Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, we do our weekly bulletins. We have hydrological maps, flood vulnerability maps, borehole ethologies. All of these are we produce all of these products in our office here in Abuja. Next slide, please. This is our river flow for Benue and Niger, and we're talking about in the bulletin is called the monthly flood and drought monitoring bulletin. We do all of this every month to sensitize the people by telling them what is going to happen within the river Niger and river Benue. Next slide, please. Yes, sensitization. After I earlier said, after the the prediction, we go for sensitization using the print and electronic media. We do press briefing, publication and distribution of hydrological bulletins to stakeholders through translation in English, Hausa, and Yoruba, the three major languages in the country. We do all of that. We have a flood alert, which we are under or is still under develop, stakeholders and communities engagement, awareness and advocacy, especially at the local level. Next slide, please. Yeah, in conclusion, flood early warning and flood forecasting systems are important components of flood disaster risk mitigation. The responsible agencies should ensure that all equipment necessary for generating this information are functional and well in order, and the personnel are well equipped to discharge this function. Information on flood early warning should be provided well in advances of any anticipated flood and make available real time for response measure and during the flood containment of to aid the rescue plan and recovery measure. Professionals shall ensure that information on flood warning are communicated well to policymakers to guide effective and efficient decision making. Next slide, please. I'm sure it's the last slide. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Musa. If you have comments, we have it at the end of the second presentation. So we'll go straight to Sultan to make his presentation within 15 minutes, please.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon once again. My name is Sultan Kamal Abdulazeez. As I await for my slide to be presented by the Secretariat, I'll go on to tell you a little about my agency. I work with the Nigerian Space Agency, and the Nigerian Space Agency was established in 1999. Some of our key functions are actually to develop satellite technology for various applications and operationalizing indigenous space system. We are also a repository for all satellite data across Nigeria. And accordingly, we actually pursue and key into collaborations and consultations that have to do with space data. We also promote and coordinate space application programs for the purpose of optimizing resources and actually sustainable development, as the case may be. We also encourage largely capacity building in space technology. So these are some of the key things that we do around the agency. And it's important to note that a lot of our collaborators are here within this meeting. Just to mention a few, UN Spider, we've worked hand in hand with NISA, and it's actually been a privilege and an honor to work with you all, because without you all, we wouldn't have been able to go far in pursuit of our disaster management operations. So for today, I will be presenting on this paper, Flood Mapping and Damage Assessment along River Benue and Niger using Sentinel-1 SAR data within the Google Earth platform. Yeah, so next slide, please. And these are my outlines for this presentation. Introduction, study area, I would go through the methods, analysis, and results, then there would be a conclusion. Next slide. So it's basically no news that flood actually has a significant implication on millions of lives, and it poses substantial risks to communities, infrastructure, and the ecosystem generally. It has gone on to have various socioeconomic implications. Croplands are affected. Humans' exposure to this disaster have posed them risks, health risks, and also loss of source of livelihoods actually as a result. So it is imperative that we have these conversations, especially at a time where the world is experiencing climate change and having so much devastation as a result of this disaster. Nigeria actually, with its complex river system, just as the man from Niger had even showcased, the River Niger and River Benue are two transboundary rivers that actually are at great risks for disaster, especially when the rainy season comes in Nigeria. High precipitation actually means that the carrying capacity of Nigeria, the Nigerian rivers, River Niger and River Benue, can no longer be met, and then it overfloods. There's an overcharge to communities that are just within the river channel, because predominantly one of our major socioeconomic source of livelihood actually is agriculture, and a lot of croplands are dependent on the water within River Benue and River Niger. So a lot of farmers depend on it to get water in order to feed their proceeds just around the River Benue and River Niger channel. So of recent times, we've actually experienced a lot of flood events in Nigeria, and we've been working hand in hand with some of our key collaborators, as I earlier mentioned, just aligning with our sustainable developmental goals related to sustainable cities, communities, and climate actions. So this research actually focused on assessing and monitoring the floods within these river channels from 2015 to 2023 for River Niger and 2015 to 2022 for River Benue. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. All right. So, okay, please, the study area, the slide before this. All right, so this is our study area. Just as I mentioned, River Benue and River Niger are transboundary rivers, and then they have their confluence somewhere in the middle, Lokoja, situated in Kogi State. And it's important to note that it is actually prone to a seasonal flooding. Just as I earlier mentioned, due to precipitation from probably June to October, the rain becomes really heavy, and then the carrying capacity is overreached. And then it goes on to damage communities, agriculture, and infrastructure. And then predominantly because we are looking at the communities within the river channel, this study actually employed a 5-kilometer buffer around the river across the transboundary rivers, actually, and that's our study area. Next slide. So the research actually utilized cloud computing platform, which is the Google Earth Engine, and a UN SPIDER recommended practice script for flood mapping and damage assessment, actually. And that script actually utilizes Sentinel-SAR data, MODIS data, MODIS land cover data, and global human settlement layers. It's important to note that the scripts are actually 609 lines of script, and incorporated in these 609 lines of scripts are various methods, just as viewed on the flow chart. You could see that the flow chart actually incorporates Sentinel data, and then there's an automatic pre-processing, which has to do with mosaicing of this data before and after, then speckle filter to basically enhance the image so that it can be suitable for change detection. And then, yes, digital elevation model, global surface water, all actually operated within. It also intersects layer for population density, cropland, and urban areas, just so that basically we can ascertain the damage done within the flooded areas. And then it actually shows us results for the exposed population, croplands, urban settlements, and then we have our flood assessment maps at the end of the day. Next slide, please. So straight into the work, actually, the results of our work. And then we created maps actually for River Benue flooding from 2015 to 2023. And then we focused on inundation extent, which is the flood extent, estimating damage to populations and croplands due to the intersected layer that I earlier mentioned while discussing about my methodology. And also we determined the inundation frequency within the societies that have been affected, thereby identifying vulnerable settlements at the end of the day. So the flood assessment for 2018, I beg your pardon, that's one of the maps. Because of the time frame for this presentation, I won't be able to show you all of the maps. However, I have a damage assessment, just as you see at the bar chart here. In 2015, there was an effect and impact on population and croplands, specifically 37,725 hectares of land were inundated, 76,033 people were actually exposed to flooding in that year, and 1,369 people were hectares of croplands were actually affected. In 2016, there was quite a reduction compared to the previous year, as you could see. In 2017, a bit of reduction, but it was overwhelming in 2018. There was almost a double or triple, actually, of the situation in 2015, which is actually a very, it's a major concern, actually. So in 2018, you could see that we have over 100,000 hectares of land affected within the River Benue channel, River Niger channel, I beg your pardon. And then 394,951 hectares of croplands actually affected, and people actually exposed to flood. And then we had 18,467. So this was one of the predominant years actually for the river flooding across River Niger. And then since then, it dropped significantly until the recent flooding in 2022, where not as much impact as in 2018, but you could see that we had 47,181 hectares of land affected, 108,772 numbers of people estimated to be exposed to flooding that year, and 970 hectares of croplands actually affected. So this was actually quite elaborate for the year. And in 2023, the impact dropped significantly. Then next slide, please. This is actually the result for the flood monitoring and assessment of River Benue Channel. And this actually took account of historic data right from 2015 up to 2022. And as you could see, the results also highlight 2015, 2018, and 2022 as the most significant years. If we could just run through the slides of the impact and damage assessment, as you can see on the bar chart. But the most prevalent year to be affected in terms of croplands is actually in 2018, significantly in 2022, and then 2015. And then for the flood extent cut across 25,089 actually in 2022, which is the most predominant year. And in 2015, we have 21,296 estimated hectares of land affected, and in 2018, 18,083 hectares of land. And then in terms of numbers of exposed people estimated, you could see that the most predominant here was actually in 2018, followed by 2015, and then 2022. Such is the impact that inundation actually has on socioeconomic and the socioeconomic implications actually it has on croplands, which is a mainstay source of livelihood here in Africa and predominantly and here in Nigeria as well. And then you could see the impact it has on people. Next slide. So out of our analysis, remember we overlaid settlement data. And when we overlaid settlement data, we saw the intersections between the flood extent and then this settlement. Then it's helped us highlight historically what we have been able to, the settlements actually that have been affected by flood for the years under investigation. And this actually helps us to understand the dynamics of the flood within several settlements that are affected. It also shows us the hotspots for flooding, basically, because one of our major criteria is for any community within this time span that got inundated for 4 years and above across this river channel, Benue, River Niger channel. So as you could see, this is actually one of our key guides to noting the hotspots and knowing how reoccurring it is in various states, and furthermore, even the minute settlement points. Next slide. So we didn't just carry out the analysis and remain there. The pictures prior to this slide. Can you go to the previous slide, please? Previous slide. Yeah, thank you. So the images you could see here are actually officers from my division that went on field to validate some of the results we got. And as you could see, there are some croplands that are still inundated, not completely dried after the flood event. And basically, you could see the other side. There was an overflow that is maybe drying off for a little. And we also asked a lot of people within the community the impact it had on them and the devastation that they faced, just to confirm what it is that we were able to see from the cloud computing platform. Next slide. So for the River Benue flooding, these are our findings. The analysis actually of the flood extent maps from 2015 to 2022 actually revealed a change in trends, especially with the flood patterns and impact across the different states that the River Benue actually traverses through. Significantly, there was an increase in flood severity in 2022 after the major event of 2015, particularly in states like Adamawa, Taraba, and Kogi. And this indicates actually heightened risks, and it highlights the need for enhanced flood management measures. The assessment of inundation frequency tables, inundation frequency, as we just saw on the table, actually provides valuable insight for dynamics of flood over time, and it actually increases flood occurrences. It shows actually flood occurrences in various states, and it compared to other years and highlights the importance of localized flood risk assessment. Because of the lack of uniformity in the flood pattern, it would be most imperative actually for us to adopt a localized approach to solving some of these issues. Then the result actually...
Sultan, time is of essence, please.
All right, so I'll round up with the, can we go to the next slide? The River Niger findings. Next slide. And then there were actually indications of progress in flood management and mitigation issues within the River Niger channel, because we saw a decreasing impact at the end of the day. So to conclude, the analysis actually was conducted and shed light within about the patterns of flood events along River Niger and River Benue channel, as we saw. And then, while it highlighted critical importance to effective disaster management and mitigation strategies and the adverse effects of the flood within this river, you could see that it's imperative that early warning system and infrastructure development and community resilience is actually built to ensure preparedness and response capacities within these regions that are affected. All right. Furthermore, it actually needs a multi-sectoral and integrated approach to the flood management practices. You could see that the man from NISA actually highlighted a lot of things that will aid our approach to profiling solutions to this problem, and a collaborative approach is of key and importance essence. It gladdens me to note that within Nigeria here, we've had major collaborations with the key stakeholders, to mention a few: NEMA, NISA, and UN SPIDER particularly are one of our most dependable and most committed partners in ensuring all of this. I look forward to working close in hand with EOTech and other stakeholders here present. From here, NASDRA, we really appreciate all of the efforts that you put in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a very wonderful presentation from both Spotlight presenters. I think there are some questions or comments already on the chat for both of them. I don't know if the secretary will go through it, or I should just go ahead and read out the presentation or the questions.
Yeah, I can. I gather the questions.
Okay, that's fine.
So please let Martin let me first read the questions, and then we will go to your question. So we have several questions to Mr. Musa, and we have one regarding the use of Earth observation data. To what extent do you use Earth observation data, Mr. Musa? Could you elaborate more on that? Or
please take the question again.
If in your work you use Earth observation data.
Yeah, we use Earth observation data because most of the data we collect basically using some instruments, like I said initially, the DCP data collection platform, the ADCP, or Acoustic Doppler current profiler. But there are some models that we bring into it, like the FANFA model. And if you heard of it, the flood forecasting and alert system for West Africa, they are models that we then use to collect our data. In case of any missing gaps, we have those data from them, especially the stage data or the discharge data. We incorporate all of this to see how we can fix in some of our missing data. The Earth observation data that we use from GMEX as well, from NESA data. We collect all of our data, especially using the flood app, and we use all of these in our collaborations with some of these sister agencies to see how Earth observation data is being used in the agency for flood forecasting as well. Yeah. Sorry,
Martina,
I can't
can
hear
you
you.
go ahead?
Sorry, come again.
Martina, can you go ahead with the questions?
Sorry, yes, I was muted. Sorry. Is it one of your strategies to increase the number of stations through implementing the Earth observation data? Or are you also trying to increase the number of stations, hydrological stations, also by other means?
Can you please take the question again? It's a little bit noisy.
Okay, let's skip. So let's,
Please
because
come
we
again.
are running out. So maybe next question. At what stage is the mobile app development?
Yeah, we have two apps. One from GMX, we call it reporter, sorry, and we have domesticated it, but we're still in contact with the people there so that we can see how we can create a database in NISA. And once that is done, once we have that collaboration, we will be able to use the app very well. But for we in NISA here, we develop an app, though it's still ongoing. That app can give you an accuracy and tells you where exactly flood is going to occur. But like I said, it's still under developing stage. We're still developing the app. We have not finished. But once that is done, we can use it anywhere, and then you can go to anywhere with your phone. Even with your phone, you can just put in the app, and then you press it to tell you when flood is going to occur in this particular area. If it's not going to occur in this particular area, just for safety purposes, if you are there, once there is flood, you don't need to go there any longer. Once there is no flood, and once there is flood, you have to avert some of these people. People live around area. Once there is that app, they will know that when the flood is going to come, and then they're going to move from.
And when does the agency intend to deploy the app?
Yeah,
Is there...
soon. It's still in progress.
Okay.
I'm sure. I don't want to be specific here.
Okay.
But it's still in progress. Yeah.
Yeah, but please inform us. We will be happy to share it with among our community. And maybe because we are running out of time, we have. I don't know if you are able to answer a question in the chat, because there are other questions. So we appreciate if you answer the other question in the chat, and then right now I will switch to questions to Mr. Abdulazeez. So we have one question regarding how it works, the implementation of recommended methodology of UN Spider. So is the methodology open and freely accessible, and how long did it take to adapt it to your study area and the data?
Thank you very much, Martina. I would like to start by saying that the methodology is actually free and openly accessible. UN Spider, through their knowledge sharing portal, actually have a list of recommended practices, not just for flood occurrences, but even drought, right? So it has within that place the guides and also a script that you can incorporate into the Google Earth Engine. So basically, you could actually click on the link and it directs you to Google Earth Engine, which is the cloud computing website that allows you to tweak. So you could actually select your study area through drawing a polygon, or you bring in your administrative shape file to determine the extent as to which you want to investigate the damage assessment. Also important to note is it gives you the flexibility to search within a particular time frame that you want to investigate. Another thing that you would also have to tweak is the passage of the satellites, because we know that different satellites have different passages for different places. It could be actually a VV or a VH. So depending on the passage that is in sync to the particular location, you might have to choose or tweak the passage on several lines of script there. Another thing is either if it's ascending or descending. So these are very, the script is quite helpful because it has explanations to it, and it's quite user-friendly too. And then how long did it take us to adapt? At first, we had a session with the UN Spider Global. They put us through rigorous training for a particular time frame. And soon enough, they followed up with our progress while we were creating some of these products. So yeah. I hope that answers the call. I can't hear you, Martina.
Yes, sorry. Maybe I will just go straight forward to Martin. Yeah, please go ahead. Feel free to address your comment.
I know I just typed everything in the chat. I thought it's better for the time frame. I can read it out for you if you want.
Please,
I'm just gonna rush through it a bit, okay? First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very nice for me to see the successful application of one of the procedures that we introduced, and that we also had some training with you guys. So thank you so much and congratulations on this great results that we could see here. For us, it would be interesting to receive some of your findings and results that you've created, and also if you can provide some feedback on potential improvements. I think you worked a lot with it now, so you might have some ideas how we can improve it. Very happy to receive that. So we can also perhaps have a meeting someday together with Adam Muyiwa and discuss that. Now, the question I have was, if you compared the results that you've created, the historic ones specifically, to official records or anything you could find from, let's say, Nigerian authorities or international, anyone who created some results on the impacts of the flood events for a particular year, would be interesting also for us to assess the quality of our procedures and improve it. Yeah, leave it at that. There's another comment how you could use this for improving potentially early warning and impact-based warnings, particularly, but I'll leave that in the chat. You can see that later. Thank you so much again. It was great to see.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. And just to mention, for clarity, my boss, actually, Dr. Muyiwa, actually was quite insistent on us trying to check if it correlates with the historic data that we have available with NEMA and some of the other agencies saddled with the responsibility of keeping these records. It will interest you to note that it actually correlates in a large extent, actually. So that's why we have adopted it and we've been using it consistently, because it actually works hand in hand.
Okay. Do you mind if I had a bit of sugar or salt today? Good afternoon, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. The recommended practice was very, very useful for us. And over time, we've developed our skills and expertise in some of these practices, especially that of flood assessment and impact assessment as well. So one thing that worked well within these recommended practice was the fact that we were able to, overlay settlement map over the extent, flood extent. And with that, we were able to establish hotspot settlements, which for NEMA, which is the National Emergency Management Agency, was very useful, and to other action disaster management agencies. This comes really well for them, especially at the time where resources are very limited. So with these, they can be able to focus on where locations and settlements to reach out to, rather than doing a generic, intervention or, planning. So for us, yeah, it was a good one. And again, this is the same recommended practice that we adopt for the Lagdo Dam monitoring. So, that is some sort of international diplomacy, and that works well for us. Lagdo Dam is located in Cameroon, and we are downstream of Cameroon. And once these dams is overflown, they open up the dam and water is being released, and part of the water contributes, although it's been proven that not significant amount of water from this place contribute to the major flooding in Nigeria, but at least a bit of it contributes to flooding in Nigeria. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a long day.